Oh, hello. Welcome to Get Your Paint On. I'm your host, Dallas Kemp, and let's go on a magical journey today with making a base.
Well, all right. Then.
That's it.
That's the intro. There's no song.
That was different.
That was way
I'm trying
different.
on new shoes today.
New shoes.
Yeah,
I
new
can see that.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Get Your Paint On. It's Thursday morning, 10 a.m., and we're going to make some bases for our Monsterpocalypse minis after many wonderful requests from our many wonderful viewers and community members. Joining me today is Mr. Matt Getz.
Yep. Once again, in with Get Your Paint On. How's
Get
everybody
your paint
doing?
on.
Living the dream.
Gets your paint on?
Get your paint on.
Nice.
And on the non-soundboard mix board, John Swinkles.
Oh, hello.
I just rubbed that in.
You sure did.
We need to get John Wheels of Steel. Not so you can use
Steelers
them,
wheels.
just so we can say that you're on the wheels of steel.
I dig it. Or I will also accept a hurdy-gurdy.
Oh, man. They are so expensive.
Yeah.
Of course you would know that. You're like, I've looked into them recently.
Well, not recently. It was like maybe 2 months ago. So you're scoring.
That's recent.
You're scoring your base. What are you doing here, Dallas?
All right, so let's talk about what we's is doings. So I have our Monsterpocalypse base, and it's clear and it's plastic, and we're gonna make it basey. We're gonna put some elements on there. So I have some pumice gel. I have some gravel that I have collected from, I believe, my friend that owns a landscaping business is where this came from. I've got my glue, I've got my hobby knife, my clippers, got my sculpting tool, I've got paper clips, I've got some plastic tube and I-beams, and I got some two-part epoxy. So for my, and I also have a little bit of some basing material with what appears to be wood.
Is that like
Shavings.
cork or something?
What, this stuff?
Yeah.
This is regular basing ballast. You can get
Okay.
it at your hobby store. I have my preferred places where I go to get my basing material. They're local to Missouri. So to get me going, I'm going to score at my base. Yes, Gearbox Grinds, I'm scoring the entire base. The entire base. Base.
Is there anything to be cautious about when you're scoring the base, other than like cutting
I
yourself
mean,
with
it's
a
a
knife?
knife. So I'm going to make two bases, actually. One is going to be for my Hyperform Terracon. So I'm just kind of look and see where it sets. And then another for this Gorgadra. On the Gorgadra, I want to talk about like a different philosophy here. Maybe making your bases.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do the whole base.
Nice.
So part of the game and part of the appeal of the clear bases is so you can see your power nodes and stuff underneath it, right? So the unit bases in particular have stars in the elite for the elites. So you can see which models are elites. So we're going to do a 3/4 based and clear base. How's that sound?
That sounds pretty cool. Like,
You'll have a little window into what's on the map.
Yep.
yeah. And you were talking about the elite units. Whether or not the star is visible, just seeing one that has that 3/4 base is going to be a real obvious cue from across the table.
Yeah, or you could do your whole army like that. I'm going to do Gorgadra like that and just see what it looks like. I got some two-part epoxy over here. I'm going to mix this two-part epoxy up. This is not like P3. You can use P3 aluminum putty. But P3 aluminum putty is specifically for like really tight, small details, and it sharpens good. This is a more like detail type putty. So
It's
more
from
mush.
MASH.
yeah, it's more mush. So it's really good for basing. I'm just going to mix this two-part putty up.
Is it good for adding in a lot of bulk to the base real quick?
Because we're gonna raise it up. And we're gonna make it a little terrainy. Isn't this fun? And I'm wearing gloves because I'm a weirdo.
Mm.
And don't like touching things.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. In the baby care kit that we got, my buddy Eli gave me a whole box of pretty much those exact gloves because he knows how weird I am about like textures on my hands. So.
So they're for holding your baby?
Babies can be slimy, dog.
Babies are
Sure,
Well,
but-
once they turn 2, they just become sticky.
Yeah,
Right. But I mean, up till that, like, don't you need to make like physical, like actual contact with your baby?
Nope,
Well-
that child will only know
So it
the
imprints
feel
on
of
you.
gloves.
Well, it's not a bird, right? It imprints on me.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know how Getslings do.
Yeah, no, neither do I. I'm going to be calling Dallas for advice like
Oh
5-8 times a
My
day.
God.
Is that the best idea?
Have you met my son?
Yeah, I have.
Kind of
We,
creepy.
we talk about like turn of the century politics a lot. So
True. That Jeep ride with you and Zane, I was just like sitting over there, just like, I'm just gonna look at my phone. You guys are talking about wacky stuff. Bloop bloop bloop. So this
So-
is I'm just literally mushing this onto the base.
And with the scoring on there, you're getting a lot of adhesion with the epoxy sculpt. Would it be like slipping off if you hadn't scored it first, or
It wouldn't necessarily. The scoring just helps.
Scoring. When you want to be sure.
yeah?
I mean,
Well,
look,
I haven't ever really done any work with clear acrylics before, so I'm completely new to this. I'm going to be asking some naive questions, Dallas.
naivety. So I'm not going to go all the way to the edge with the putty here. I'm just going to kind of get kind of what I want out of this.
Because the basing material will go all the way to the edge.
Yeah, I'm going to take the basing material all the way to the edge, and then this will just rise the middle. Give it that lumpiness that we want.
So for the 3/4 base, or really any partially exposed acrylic base, you would mask it off before priming, obviously.
Obviously.
But would you just use like painter's tape, or would you do a liquid mask? Like, what would you recommend?
I'd
for that?
probably use a liquid mask.
Okay.
Define a liquid mask.
So you can get it at art stores, and honestly, you can kind of use white glue on this stuff because you can just mush it on there, prime it, and then that white glue will just peel right off.
Yeah. Yeah, because the surface of the acrylic is real smooth.
Yeah. But with a liquid mask, it paints on a little bit like rubber cement, right? It allows you to get around the details of like the organic curves that he's got there, and then you can just take a toothpick or something and just scrape it off after you primed.
Slash or just peel it up and
Yeah, exactly.
So with this one, this is just going to be primed. The other thing you can do, this one I want to make sure that the scoring is covered at least,
Sure.
because I don't want any scoring exposed. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I'm going to do this the right way, not the way I would do it if I wasn't on camera. Because if I wasn't on camera, I would just lick his feet. But I'll use a paintbrush and a little bit of water. I want to moisten his feet. And I'm going to approximate where I want him. I'm going to just kind of press him in there.
And the moisture is just so he doesn't stick as much and pull the epoxy off.
Exactly. And you could use even like,
Lip balm.
Lip
what have
balm.
you. Same thing you use on your tools.
so he's got his feet, his little toes are sticking up in the front. So I want to put some putty there to give him something to stand on. And this also puts some footprints on him. Now, I know on Facebook, somebody has already painted their models, and they're like, I want to base them. What do I do? And the answer to that would be do your bases and then prime them and then stick your guy on.
So one thing that's kind of cool about you using such a soft putty is Like, when heavy pressure gets put on soft ground, how there's that displacement, kind of that roll around the weight. It's just naturally doing that as you push it down. So that's cool.
Yeah, and you can even accentuate that, right? You can smush them even deeper if you want to really accentuate that mass being pressed into the dirt.
I'm thinking about Jurassic Park, like when the T-Rex foot comes down and the mud just bubbles
Oh,
up.
it just bubbles around everywhere. So I'm going to put Terracon on that back foot just a little bit more than he should be. Because the other thing about not having a flat base, I can kind of play with the angle of him a little bit. So it looks like this toe is sticking up a little bit. So I pull him off. I have my feet print, and that's my guide. And actually, I can actually see, you probably can't see it on here. There's toes, and of course this toe is not non-existent. So I know exactly where to put the putty.
Terracon's footprints in there have like a real paleontology feel to them.
I mean, a Jurassic feel to it.
Well, I didn't want to double down on Jurassic, but it almost would be cool to have those
Have
just
that base and use like a War Machine model on it.
yeah, exactly.
Like, whoa, what are those footprints?
Or use a Terracon base around, or a Terracon footprint around the base of a Brontox or something.
sure,
Right?
yeah,
Oh, yeah. Have the Brontox
like they've been hanging out recently.
walking through his footprints.
Yeah, exactly.
In the footprints of giants.
Well, see, I would love to put some of this putty on like a 30 mil base, right? Put a big old Terracon footprint in it, and then have like a scoring like beast handler like on the base and like sculpt him like head down, like arms out, like what is this? I need it. Find me this beastie.
Well, having like the footprints of Terracon on the bases of your other units for pterosaurs.
Oh yeah.
Like it just kind of plays into the narrative of like Terracon is moving and this herd of other pterosaurs are just following behind him, right?
to go mess things up.
Yeah. And that's something that I really like is when you have that kind of continuity across all of the bases in a force.
Well, yeah, it ties all your models together without necessarily having to paint them the exact same.
Really ties the room together.
Yeah.
So I'm going to now take some, which one do you want? Let's do this first. So this is just a plastic tube you can get at hobby stores. And I'm going to cut like a little tiny chunk off.
Some like exposed broken pipes.
And I'm going to put this, so I kind of pushed up a lot of putty there underneath that toe. So I think that's a good spot.
And the epoxy is just like a generic 2-part epoxy, yeah?
Generic 2-part epoxy.
But like a sculpting epoxy, not a plumber's epoxy. Like we should specify that, right?
There's no real difference.
Oh, really?
Not really.
Yeah, no, they're
This is-
basically the same thing.
I mean, especially this stuff, this is literally just any type of, anything that you can stick on a base to build mass is good enough on this application.
Okay.
So long as when it dries, it hardens somewhat decently.
Yeah, you want it hard, you want it to become solid, but this is not tight sculpting putty. You could use P3 putty, aluminum putty, but this is just a mass of generic putty that I can just use a ton of.
So
This is a paper clip.
that is a paperclip. So back in the day, before I had access to the brown stuff, the P3 sculpting putty we have, I used to get the generic kind of green sculpting putty, but I'd buy it from plumbing supply stores.
Yeah.
Because you could get like a meter tape of it for like $12.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use,
No, realistically, the main use I have for the P3 aluminum putty is when I want detail.
yeah.
So Dallas, what are you trying to represent with the paper clips?
So with the paper clips, I'm sticking those in there and I'm messing them up a little bit, bending them, and that represents like what rebar.
Okay.
Oh, word.
And you can even get textured paper clips. And they
Yeah,
look,
those would look a lot better. Like
they
the ones that
look
have
really
little
good.
grooves.
and I got 2 different size paper clips here. So I'm just gonna
Just for some variety.
poke a hole, put a little dot of glue. Stick that in there. Then I'm going to look and see how it looks with that. It's like he missed it. It's like he just barely missed it. That would have been terrible to step on there, Terracon.
That would have made him very angry.
Roarg! All right, now I got some plastic I-beam.
What scale plastic I-beam are you using?
That's a really good question.
Little.
I went to a hobby store
Mm-hmm.
and I said, ooh, and I bought
Sure.
and I didn't look at the package.
Okay.
I looked at the product.
Sure.
So I don't know. This is really tiny. I was using a bigger scale stuff and because it's all I had. And then I went to the hobby store the other day.
Looks like 75 or 80.
It was real tiny.
That would be my best guess.
And found this really small scale I-beam and I got super excited about it.
Actually, Fluffy Zealot said HO is pretty close.
I don't
for,
think that that's true.
What's smaller than HO? Is that like N?
I think it's, yeah. These are not
I haven't
28
done-
millimeter scale models.
I haven't done model trains for a long time.
Okay.
Although, if you find like model train civilians, you might be able to add them to your base as like panic survivors.
They would be really, really tiny because the door of a building is like 2 mil.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if you could find 2 mil people. I'm gonna have to look into that because I just want panicked civilians on
Just
on
people
blocks.
freaking out,
Yeah.
just running.
Or just like for your hyperform Terracon, like some dude like standing on the back, like yeah.
Fluffy Zealot, I literally just said that the buildings were about 2 millimeter.
The doors of the buildings.
Doors of the buildings. Doors of the buildings are about 2 millimeters.
Yeah, the scale is cinematic.
Cinematic scale.
The word I
like
always
that.
use is because
I like that.
it's not always 100% one-to-one because it's all about like looking good on the table
Yeah.
and the monsters looking impressive.
So when we were setting the scale in the studio, like it was, it's always a trick. So I think cinematic is a good way to put it.
Well, that's just a word I use because that's how the fights usually go down. That's usually like everything is like really high impact.
Well, I mean, like I said, when we were setting it in the studio, we printed out, we set kind of the monsters first, and then the units and buildings kind of fell around them to make what we thought would look cool.
Well, and that makes sense because I mean they are the namesake of the game, right?
Yeah.
It's not building apocalypse.
Yeah, it's not unit apocalypse.
It's
So-
Monsterpocalypse.
Mirth the Wise has a pretty good question for you, Dallas. Would you suggest scoring the base at a point of contact if you want to keep the base clear?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Fluffy Zealot, yeah, the tanks and such are actually really big. I think like a standard G tank is two city lanes, like two
Yeah,
traffic lanes
G-Tank's
wide.
like 4 stories,
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah, they're real big.
right? I just say that it's crewed by, command of like 10 people.
Yeah, they're sort of like the old experimental German Rata.
Mm-hmm.
That's the G tank is the G tank because it's so big and so heavy it wouldn't be able to function without like minor anti-grav technology.
So now, so way back home, I had a friend who had a landscaping business, and so I got a bunch of really cool rocks. But you can get like really cool rocks from your front step or your driveway. And I'm just going to decorate. I'm just going to take some of these little rocks. I'm going to stick them in the putty. Somebody's complaining about frame rate.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Not a thing that can be done about that.
All right.
I checked the outputs earlier. Everything is still going out at least 2900, and
I don't know how that works. It's a magic box.
So Dallas, those rocks look very clean and dry, like almost kiln dried, right? Like, would you, if you're just grabbing gravel that looks interesting from your driveway, would
I
you?
bake it.
You'd bake it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also use a lot of dirt. Like my front steps kind of go down into my door. So a lot of dust and dirt collects there.
Sure.
And so sometimes, well, not sometimes, but I have to sweep that up to keep it fairly clean. I'll collect little patches of dirt, and I'll set my stove to like 350, something like that. and I'll spread the dirt out over an old cookie sheet, and I'll bake it. That
Okay.
way there's any microbes or anything
Sure.
goes away. And then I'll collect that dirt after it cools down. Of course, be safe. Use your Bahi oven mitts because you bought 2. And then I keep that dirt for certain basing techniques.
Yeah.
I love basing techniques. I love basing materials. Recently, I had a friend send me some really cool plants from Georgia that are like native to that area, and like I can use them for basing and stuff like that. But you dry it out, just like not algae, but what grows around here, the moss. The
Yeah.
moss that grows around here, you can actually collect that and dry it.
Yeah.
One of the other things I've done with a similar thing, because like finding the right grain of ballast is not always the easiest, is I made a base out of epoxy putty, basically, right? Coated the entire top of it with a little bit of lip balm. Took a lint roller, right, and gathered up some of that baked up dirt and stuff like that to create like kind of a texture mill, for lack of a better term. Went over the base with it, and it totally made it look like volcanic ground, like that pocked. What's the word I'm looking like? Kind of a pumice surface. It was really cool.
I've always been a sucker for like coarse ground coffee as a basing material.
Sure.
I just really like the texture of it.
I mean, way back in the day, people used kitty litter.
Yeah, right.
Kitty litter was very popular for a long time. So I think on my monster here, I'm looking at it, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small island of basing out in the middle of the sea of clear. I wouldn't do this on a unit because I wouldn't have much room, but I think I can get away with it here on my monster. Smush that down with a little water, dry it up. And this will give like just some cool visual interest to the monster base. You know, you can get a little carried away and have fun with it. What I need to do is do a wreck G tank on something.
That'd be great.
I have the parts right here.
He actually does. Wow.
Dude, throw me that G tank. Let me see.
Good catch.
Still on the sprue. It was fresh.
Well, it was a miscast I was using for reference.
Aha. Boop.
I've got a bunch of Monpoc miscasts that I've taken from the garbage bin just for when I'm writing about them, so I can have the actual model turn it around, see kind of what the details are on it.
Yeah, no, it's just I grab pieces here and there every once in a while to use literally as like references for like when I don't know the scale of something and I'm creating like some of the images for the website and stuff like that, so I have a better understanding.
Yeah.
Let's see how that looks. Striker 911 says, Dallas, have you made a decision on your high perform terracotta? I have.
What decision have you made, Dallas?
To paint it.
Part of me wants to like have you like literally like cut the G tank's like base bit in like almost like half jagged and have it kind of sticking up out of the ground like it got caught in a mudslide.
I'm gonna chop off his wheels for sure.
The turret being a separate part's great too, because like
You can do all kinds of crazy
classic
stuff
like
with that. Yeah.
Desert Storm war movies, you'll always see like the exploded off turret of a tank just laying in the desert
With the barrel all bent and wonky.
Yeah, we'll do it like that, and then we'll put like a piece of I-beam right there next to it, and then Gargadra can be. That's actually bumping his belly a little bit. So we'll put this over here. I always look at silhouette, making sure silhouette works.
And then Ed has a question for you, Matt.
Okay.
Is Monpoc going to be getting any lore?
Yes.
Well, yeah, because it's a game we make, and you work here.
Yeah.
So does Doug. That's
Yep.
happening.
And you write stories with words.
I write stories with words. No, it is getting lore. I don't know at the moment what the schedule of releasing it is. I know it's going to be coming out kind of serialized.
Yeah, and they can expect stuff very near to launch, if not right after.
Yeah.
As far as like some slightly more expanded stuff than we've already discussed. Like, I mean, you know, even like when you were talking with Schick about like the Shinobi and stuff like that, and just how their ninja suits work and their where they come from, their organization and stuff like that. That's semi-established, but we'll be establishing more.
Yeah, I was just this morning before coming in talking with Oz about some of the upcoming releases and trying to get a feel from him what he wanted their story to be like. So, so yeah, it definitely will have lore in a more serialized fashion than you might be used to.
But I think serialized matches this style of game in its setting, right? Because if you think about it, like, you know, like the old kaiju movies were very serialized, as were, you know, various TV shows that featured large monsters.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing too is there's the assumed point of reference, because unlike War Machine or Hordes, it takes place in our world. So you don't need to know the history up until that point of divergence when the Planet Eaters came, right?
Right. You
Like
just
that's when anything relevant starts.
Right. And as you already explained, and I mentioned as far as like the Shadow Sun Syndicate, right? Like there's some alt history going on there.
Yeah,
but
but
it's minor enough that like you're like, oh, okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah, it's not like Nikola Tesla developed a radium bomb that managed to explode all of Manhattan. Or I guess it would have been Jersey because of
Connecticut.
No, it was Menlo Park. Let's just say he tries to kill Edison, right? That doesn't happen. So you know the background of Monpoc up until the point the monsters showed up already, because it's the world you live in.
Right.
Wish it was.
You want monsters?
Heck yeah.
Would you ride around on Terracon?
Heck yeah.
Oh, dude, if riding on the back of Terracon is an option,
Take it.
it's the only option.
I don't know, man. What if you could be a shinobi? What if you could be a Zor?
¿Por qué no los dos?
Well, I guess you could shrink down, ride Terracon, then turn super big.
Like like S-type,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Totally the right size to backpack for Terracon. Throw some shuriken from his back.
So
They're in the same agenda. They're buddies. It could happen.
You're adding, it looks like some pumice gel to the base now, Dallas?
Yep. This is just a textured paste. I'm going to add this to...
I see what you did there, Trotsky. He said, can we get a vehicle robot that is made up of smaller vehicles?
Anyway, so about this pumice gel.
Yep, just a textured base or a textured paste.
Okay. Does it have a really fine grit to it?
Very fine. Very fine. I'm just going to smoosh it in there.
So I was kind of curious how you're going to handle the transitional areas between the sculpting putty and the flatter backside of the base there. Is that just slapping in that pumice gel?
Yep.
Okay. It smooths out the more dramatic transitions.
Yep.
Cool.
And then I'll just do kind of the same up here on the front and create the less dramatic transition by pushing the pumice around, getting it up on. I'm gonna make Ron really upset. I'm gonna push it up on the tank treads a little bit, like it's more stuck in the muds. And if you get it on the bigger rocks, once the stuff dries, you can peel it away. And this just gives me some nice texture to work with. And I'm going to just push this right to the edge and scrape the edge. That way I get that nice smooth rim to the base.
What's the working time of pumice gel?
It dries pretty quick. It's kind of like dries like paint.
Okay.
I mean, it goes a little bit longer, but...
Well, yeah, because you've had it prepped there and sitting in that area for at least half an hour, and it's still workable.
Yeah, it's still working. Still working just fine.
I got a little bit of lag going on.
Yep. It happens. It's the internet.
The internet's coming to you from the future.
So-
today.
Would you leave areas of the sculpting putty exposed, not cover it with pumice gel, just to get like a different texture?
You can. Your choice.
But would you?
Probably not. I like the texture. And we're going to add more texture. There's more. There's more to be done.
More texture is more better, I've been told.
Yeah. I mean, you want, like, I always three element minimum to basing. It gives me a lot of visual diversity. So this has way more than that. So it makes it look more complex, but it's not. See, like that's an awkward transition because this is kind of lumped. But
So the bases that you're working on now and the ones that I've seen you do before, they've been very like urban destruction, right? Because that fits with the maps in Monpoc and the gameplay.
hey, man, the beer we made was not called Country Smasher.
Sure. But if I'm going to brew my own Country Smasher beer, how many of these techniques would you port over to doing a more natural basing for a Monpoc mini? Or any mini, really?
For more natural, you could easily adapt a lot of this to natural. Like basically, you just get rid of the I beams, get rid of the rebar, get rid of the G tank.
Add more rock.
No,
Or you
I'd keep,
could keep the
I'd,
G-Tank.
I'd keep the G-Tank. But what other kinds of things would you want to bring in to have that same degree of visual interest?
Yeah, and the trick would be finding static grass that fits the scale.
So
Right.
to be the really small fine stuff.
Or there's like a brass cut foliage for
Yeah,
really small scale.
Yeah.
but man, if you could get some little wildflowers, that'd be adorable.
You just Terracon traipsing through a field of poppies or
Look,
something.
man, I'm just saying, it'd be cool. Okay, boop. Get that pumice up underneath that tank. You don't have to be perfect with it. Whatever. I'm just working my way around, and then a little bit up here on this little island in the middle of the clear. Like I said, I think that adds like some cool visual interest that you can get away with on these bigger monster bases that you probably, most likely, won't be able to get away with on the unit bases because the units are going to consume a lot of the 30 mil base.
Sure. Well, and some of the other like things that like I mean we're not going to get to see on this video because we're indoors is once the primer's applied, that's going to enhance those transitions as well.
Oh yeah.
If you prime them, are you going to put photos up online for people to check out?
Sure. Well, I mean, this Terracon's going to be painted
Nice.
eventually. So with this one, I'm just putting this all over.
Sure. Well, yeah, because
Like
that one
the
you're not
whole
worried
base.
about seeing through anything.
Like blurk. Run it right up to that edge of the base. Smush it around. Smushity smush. Leaving a little spot for his feet prints. Because once this is
And
all
you
dry.
You must make a lot of cakes, Dallas.
Oh man.
Makes a lot of pancakes.
Well, you don't frost a pancake.
You see me
Or do you?
frost it with butter and syrup.
Or that maple butter.
Just what's wrong with regular butter?
Nothing.
What happened to the world?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, when you're trying to improve bacon and butter,
Yeah, I
You're
don't
a mess.
understand.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's basically like a maple spread stuff. Like, you use it, make a little pancake sandwich. It's just delicious.
I already got maple syrup and I already got butter.
yeah.
Two of the finest
if you
things.
get to sit at home and eat your pancakes, that's great. However, if you make a little like mobile pancake sandwich,
You know what I almost
yes,
bought for
I'm
lunch today?
serious.
You know what I almost bought for lunch today?
What's
Pancakes.
Pancake sandwich.
that? Pancake sandwich.
You ever make peanut butter and jelly sandwich on cold pancakes?
Yup.
That's the best.
I've made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on tortillas before.
Sure. That works great too.
College life. College life. Multiple use out of tortillas and top ramen.
You take two cold leftover pancakes that's been in the refrigerator, right? Preferably buttermilk. And you
Throw them in the toaster for a second.
No, I don't even throw them in a toaster. I make them cold and just
it's
put
so
peanut
good.
butter on one side, orange marmalade on the other side, sprinkle a little bit of nutmeg on top.
Oh yeah.
Nutmeg's good. Orange marmalade isn't.
Nutmeg on top of orange marmalade is awesome.
I agree to disagree.
You can disagree all you want. That doesn't make you right.
Doesn't make you right either.
Never said it did.
Philosophy with Dallas Kemp.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
don't judge anybody's food choices
I'm not
unless you're
judging
eating
your food
mayonnaise,
choice.
and then I'm like,
you never had Belgian fries, have you?
man, I don't like mayonnaise.
So the last pancake I had was a campfire side buckwheat pancake cooked in cast
Yeah.
iron.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't need no maple butter.
It didn't need nothing.
It was good.
Now, did you, in that cast iron, did you cook that pancake before or after the rashers of bacon?
After.
As well you should.
Yeah. I mean, bacon is basically just a cooking implement when it comes
lube.
like
Food lube.
food lube. So Dallas, we got to get you out camping so you can make some wilderness pancakes with us.
Wilderness pancakes.
I am all about this trip.
This is fun and boring to watch.
Well, that's why we're talking about campfire and
And
pancakes.
it's actually not boring to watch.
I'm just mushing paste about.
Right, but it's it's interesting to note which parts you cover and which ones like you're leaving as far
Oh
as,
man,
the
I'm
footprints
messy.
and
Like
stuff.
I just covered that whole rock because it's like what?
Yeah, but I mean it is a mess, isn't it? Like it's destruction. It doesn't need to be smooth and perfect.
So here's the two bases now.
Mirth says bacon, aka meat candy.
Actually, Mirth had an interesting question from earlier, Dallas. Some of the Generation 1 figures had translucent features and it looked awesome. How would you go about modeling to have that look?
There's no way to paint translucent,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't think I would. Like, I think it's more interesting to paint.
Well, and that's something too. A lot of those
I wish
translucent areas were meant to be like energy glows and stuff,
Right.
right?
Right, which you can achieve through various other methods without having to be translucent.
Okay, so now I have my little ballast. Hot dog buns with jelly. Ugh. Ugh. So I'm going to take my little bit of this ballast. And I'm going to choose where this goes. And where I'm going to focus is around the bigger rocks. So I have some large ballast in here. I'm going to focus it around the bigger rocks. I'm going to try to grab the bigger ballast. See what I mean there?
Mm-hmm.
So like there's a rock there. So I want some of these large rocks near that.
And you're just kind of maneuvering them into the position you want with your hobby knife.
Yeah, you're being very deliberate with that. Like,
Yeah. Well, I
when
mean,
you
I
first
can't just
described
take
it-
and just dip this in here, right?
Right.
I'd just make a mess. And you want the big rocks, the larger rocks around the bigger rocks, like so. Because that's how rocks typically
Do.
do.
Well, that's actually something when I was learning 3D modeling, right? In 3D, you can have a perfect 90-degree angle to represent like a wall touching a floor or something. And they teach you always need to conceal that because that's never really how things look in nature because you'll have grit building up in areas where there isn't space for something to sweep by or for wind to blow through. So you always want to have that kind of grit layer at those transitions between surfaces.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what this is doing. It's giving me, so it's going from this small to this or this ultra fine to the small to this medium to this large, and you're just creating that growth out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little tedious because I have my ballast mixed together, but
Yeah, because the only time you don't want to do that is if you actually want something to be visually jarring, right? Because then it doesn't look like it's in place. It looks like it's out of place.
just keep working with these bigger pieces. And like I kind of tap them with my knife to get them down in that pumice. Get that one out of the footprint because it doesn't belong there. Check my feet. Make sure everything's going to still work. Looks like it will. I might do like a little quick sprinkle of the fine stuff. Kind of all over. Of course, big ones will be mixed in there. Oh, that was a nice big piece. Nice. Some up there on this little island of the little island.
And this is you achieving those 3 different levels of texture that you were talking about earlier.
Mirtha Wise says, all right, it's time for me to start learning glow effects. There are actually a number of videos, at least one of which is specifically titled Glow Effects, in the Formula P3 Presents playlist.
Yep. Brendan made some really cool effect videos. You should check them out.
Go to youtube.com/privateerpressprime, and then within there just search for glow effects.
I feel like I need more of the larger stuff down here. Kind of to the front. I like bringing those larger bits to the front because they're nice focal.
Well, yeah, because you got to consider like Terracon's going to be overshadowing pretty much everything on this base. So
Yeah, he's just going to conceal all of this.
Sabian says, hey, Matt, any Crucible Guard plans for the IKRPG? Short answer, yes.
Yeah.
Soon.
yeah.
Stay tuned.
Ooh.
Oh, and earlier Sabian asked about Clockwork Vessels for the RPG. The only one available right now is the Clockwork Priest in No Quarter Classic, issue 48.
There you go. And if you can't find it on store shelves, you can find the digital version at store.privateerpress.com.
Store.privateerpress.com. Look at that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with those. Those are ready for
Some priming.
yeah, well this one will be tricky. I need to let that dry and then I'll mask it off, then I'll prime it. I'll prime the Gorgaja and I'll stick them together. This I'll let dry. I'll stick Terracon on and then prime the whole thing together.
Sure.
And paint him. He still needs putty work to be finished, but now I got my base ready for my Hyperform Terracon.
Nice.
Boom.
And we finished 15 minutes early. Man, if only there was something else to show.
If only.
Too bad.
It's really too bad. I was hoping we'd be able to stick around until 11, but
Oh, I know. Brendan was working on something that that is making an appearance next week.
Is it next week?
Next week is when you'll be able to pre-order it.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
So I think he got some work done on that.
I think we're gonna move the camera.
We're gonna move the camera.
Everybody, hold on just a moment.
Oh, watch him go crazy.
You're gonna see the sauce.
The studio. Oh no.
I see the white background. You want to focus in about right there. That seems
You
focused.
got to bring the thing in. I can focus after it's there. Just go and bring it in.
Let's focus right with this.
if we have any palm readers in chat, why don't we see what we can tell about Dallas?
You're gonna have to hold real still. Too far. Should be about right.
Tasty.
Look at that belly. Look at that big belly.
I'm so big. Look how big I am. I'm the biggest thing ever. Are you though?
Oh.
So that, oh my gosh, I have to
You have to back.
look. I have to put my arm all the way in the back. That is the Supreme Guardian.
It's huge.
Brendan just finished painting this, and he's, as John said, going to go on sale. What?
He'll be available for pre-order on store.privateerpress.com on Monday.
Look how cool
The
this
20th.
model is.
That is
It's
awesome.
so awesome. He's so big.
So,
just
hey,
a
so
giant
check
rock
this out.
man.
Boop, boop, boop,
There you go.
so you can actually see the entire model. So you want to know why I love the Supreme Guardian so much?
Tell me about the Supreme Guardian.
Do you remember the fiction that was in Primal, like Mark I Primal?
A little bit.
So there was a moment in there when they basically reference one of the great ancestors of Scorn in the city of Malphas. And it is a Supreme Guardian that they're talking about. Like, this is just kind of, this is a deep cut as far as I'm concerned about some of the cool Scorn stuff that we've mentioned that's been in the setting forever, but we've never been able to see on the tabletop until now.
That's the cool thing about Scorn. Scorn like existed before War Machine.
Yeah.
Scorn was in the Witchfire trilogy.
They were.
So, prominently.
So do me a favor, raise them up just a little bit,
Oh, sorry.
and then spin around to the back there again. So right about there, where we can see the light playing off what Brendan did on his
Oh yeah,
cloak,
the
if you will
obsidian there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, I realize that some of those details are actually in the resin, but what he was able to like kind of like pull out of that with the different layers of paint there.
Yeah, a lot
looks
of coal
really
black,
good.
probably underbelly blue, frostbite, morrow white, stuff like that. Really getting in there and blending. Thamar black as the shadow or the base layer. He's got some red gems, gold armor, of course, and then the cool green fire like seen on Zal 2. Just a great big, awesome stone statue, man. I really love this model. I actually have a small I wouldn't call it force. It's like half a unit in a Ancestral Guardian painted in white.
That's cool.
And I'm thinking about adding one of these to that.
Like a white marble kind of. Nice.
Actually,
Maybe
no quarter 56. I think it's 56.
I think you're right.
It's 56, 57, or 58. I did before I worked here, I did an article on how to paint white stone mins,
Nice.
immortals.
Nice.
So you can check that out if you're interested in painting white. The painting black is, of course, in the Scorn Mark II books, which you can find online as well.
Yeah, it was 56.
There you go. Boom.
Actually, we still have a giant poster of the cover of that issue in the No Quarter Publications office.
Yep. Right behind Lyle Lowry.
Right behind Lyle, who's
But-
out today.
Yeah. I went looking for him. Anyways, this model is really freaking awesome.
It is.
I love
It
the
is.
big, flamey backpack, the big sword, the stoic stance. Like, it's just, I mean, just, it'd be cool to play an RPG where you come across something like this, right? And you have to
Take
fight
a
this
look
thing.
at issue 56 of No Quarter.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
No.
Mortality, many deaths, one life.
Well, one thing that I really like about him from a rule standpoint too is, when we went from Mark II to the new edition, it wasn't like reach and a half inch and that's all you got, right? The range was added to melee, and he's one of the first examples of really playing with that range rule beyond the chain weapon rule, right? He's got a 3-inch melee range, which is awesome. It's
Rock
just
socks.
yeah, and it shows some of the flexibility that we were able to get with the certain choices made in the rules transition.
Yeah.
Something went all black there for a second. There you go. Now you can readjust.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I've made a mess of things.
You have with all your notes and bits and bobs.
I don't know what I did wrong. It doesn't matter. It'll be cattywampus for the rest of the show. We're done. This is all the basing. So if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. Waiting on questions.
So hey, do me a favor, because I think it'll probably look pretty dope. Bring the Supreme Guardian in under there, so they can get an idea of what
down.
the top looks like. Yeah, we'll see how that looks. A little closer to you. All right, adjust the focus a little bit.
Yeah, this model's super awesome.
Yeah, it is huge.
Massive.
No, I love the detail of the flames coming out of that brazier on his back too.
Yeah, I really like the green fire. The first time I saw Zal 2, which I believe was painted by Matt DiPietro, that green fire was so dramatic and just so cool looking.
Yeah.
Right. And I just love the green magic glow that you see on some of the.
Little known fact, it's not magic. Scorn are just really into copper sulfites.
Okie doke.
I'm kidding.
It's magic.
It is magic. Magic fire.
John Likes Dice got here late. Is that brown stuff on the bases? No, that's actually a mix of like, so basically the mass, the main layer is 2-part epoxy putty. And then over the top of it, you've just got a little bit of pumice gel.
Pumice gels. You'll see the video later since you're late. Martha Wise, Dallas, what colors would you use to paint the beer Brewgrosh is drinking? I would use Rucksack Tan, Mid-North White base, Mid-North White highlight, and probably Umber Lumber, Battlefield Brown. Probably lean to the Umber Lumber. And then
Because
of
he's
course,
drinking a stout.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could also add a little touch of Bloodstone if you wanted to make it more of an amber.
Or go more mediocre if you wanted an ale.
Sure. Mediocre is really
No, it's too dark.
too dark.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a. Rucksack Tan is my base start. Mid-North White highlight, Mid-North White base, Battlefield Brown, or Umber Lumber, depending on what you're going for. Those are the colors I would choose.
That's funny because I would have chosen something called mediocre if it was an IPA.
Yeah.
Hey, I get it
Yeah.
and agree.
Oh, so many IPAs in Washington right now. What is wrong with us?
There
Hops
was
are
another
delicious.
question there.
There was another question.
Also, I'm going to have to rewatch later for tricks on gluing models to clear bases without cloudiness. Okay, John, this is what I'll tell you. So, when you're gluing a model to a base, if you're worried about fogging, what fogging is caused from. So, the first thing is to understand what causes the fogging. So, this is not a clear base, obviously. This is just a piece of plastic from a blister. So, what causes fogging is when you put glue, as you can see, it's already fogging. The glue begins to cure and it starts to off gas. And the gases have nowhere to go, so they settle back down and around it. As with all gluing, less is more. You don't need a ton of glue. So when you glue, I score the base, score the model, put just the smallest amount of glue, attach the model, and put the model in front of a fan. That way the fan is blowing those gases away from, and then there's no gas falling back onto the clear plastic causing fogging. Easy peasy. Ed Puma, any new P3 coming out? Any new P3 colors coming out with the new Monpoc line? We are using a ton of Boiler Black, Galvanized Steel, Inferno Orange on the models.
Blazing Ink and Eldritch.
Blazing Ink is also used on Monpoc models. Eldritch, not so much currently. There might be something later. I'm not real sure.
We use that a lot with the Crucible Guard, though.
They specifically asked about Monpoc, so referring to that. So a lot of the new colors, a lot of the 5 new colors that came out are being used and for that. But you never know what the future might hold. I've always got something in my workshop. That's all I got. That's my
guys.
bases. That's a
Let's,
video, boys.
Let's sing it out and head to lunch.
Sing it out, head to lunch. What do we sing about? Supreme Guardian coming to your town. 3-inch reach, fire on his crown.
That was a stretch.
It's not really his crown. It's his backpack that kind of stands behind his head where it looks like a crown.
He doesn't wear a crown because there are no kings in Eastern Immoran.
There's no kings here. There's only I.
No gods, no kings.